We look forward to going through a wake-up call for restaurant leaders and talking to you about a survey that we've completed, and give you more details and get Michael's input on some of the things that he's seeing in the space as well as we move forward. So we look forward to going through and look forward to your questions as we get towards the end. The agenda will be, we'll talk about the financial reality of restaurant workers. We'll talk about why employee financial stress matters to restaurant leaders, the leadership disconnect and some of the things that we're seeing, the rise of pay flexibility, and then we'll have time for question and answers as we go forward. So this is all based on a 2026 restaurant study that we completed. It was conducted with the Center for Generational Kinetics, surveyed over 750 U.S. hourly workers, the ages, a wide range of ages, 16 to 65, currently working in a restaurant. They are hourly employees. And the survey was conducted between March 3 and March 31 in 2026. So recently, 50% female, 49% male. About 50% of the employees that we surveyed received tips, and the remainder were strictly hourly wage workers. Just a little bit more on the DNA of the respondents. You can see the detail on the slide, so I'm not going to drain all of the slide, but there's a breakdown of the percentage of income that was received from tips, total annual household income that encompasses it, and then a number of other generational aspects. We've got Gen Z, Gen X, boomers even included in the group. And so this is the makeup of the pool of the people that we surveyed as we're going forward. Michael, I'll just take this point to welcome you personally and thank you and for joining us, and look forward to your insight. And this probably resonates at least initially here, just in the people you're hiring today. I mean, it's a pretty wide group and demographic that we see in the workplace.
Absolutely. I want to open by saying thank you. Thanks for the invitation. Really looking forward to sharing perspective. In a unique position, I actually I'm a fourth generation McDonald's franchisee. Run Beluso companies alongside my brother and my father. And so, with 87 restaurants in 3 different states and a lot of different microeconomies, we've got urban and we've got rural, we've got high poverty, we've got places of lesser poverty. And so, to me, this study that you guys conducted is actually kind of hits the nail on the head, highlighting some of the issues that are going on today with the workforce.
Super. Well, I appreciate it. And many of you that are looking in on the webinar now have probably seen some of the press releases around this study. It's gotten quite a bit of attention, we think it's deserved attention, right? We want to make sure that we are doing everything we can to support workers in the restaurant industry and working with partners like Michael and others in the space to do that. But you can see some of the quotes here that have been picked up from the report, and we'll go into more detail on this. Benefits Pro, restaurant workers rank health benefits low on priority list, and this is in comparison to what we see from a financial wellness, financial health perspective. Inc. magazine, something is fundamentally broken. 67% of hourly restaurant workers report constant financial stress. Restaurant News, new report offers wake-up call for the restaurant industry. And then you can see the Food Institute in 2026, restaurant workers face constant stress and financial strain. QSR, America's hourly restaurant workers are reaching a breaking point, new study says. And then Fast Casual picked up report 61% of restaurant workers are skipping meals due to financial stress. So this was all as a result of the report, and certainly getting the attention that we would like it to. And we really hope this opens the doors and opens the ideas around ways that we can continue to help these workers as we go forward. The financial reality of restaurant workers is what we'll jump into next. And to start that off, we'll have a poll for you. You can answer. What percentage of hourly restaurant workers are currently living paycheck to paycheck? Michael, what do you think on this? Is it A, 52%, B, 64%, C, 71%, or D, 75%?
I'm going to go with C, 71%, Al.
All right. And they're all pretty close together. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. Let's see how everybody does on that.
actually having done the pre-read,
Yeah, there you go. You got
it's
it.
deep.
Continue moving forward. The wake up call stats, 75% live paycheck to paycheck. So that's the correct answer. Other things that we found in this report, 61% of surveyed workers skipped a meal in the last week because they could not afford to eat. That's a little bit startling considering we're talking with the restaurant industry, working in the restaurant industry. 97% currently feel some sort of financial stress. 79% relied on financial workarounds before payday. Those include things like payday loan, borrowed money, credit card, etc. Michael, talk a little bit about the things that you guys are seeing and some of the things that you do to try to help some of your workers through this, because I know you guys have been out front in a lot of these things over the years. So any thoughts on some of this?
Sure. This report really, you call it a wake up call. It's things that we have seen, over time, whether it's a result of inflation or gas prices and, the cost of everything going up. And it's whether you're running a business or you are an hourly worker, it affects everybody, obviously in different ways to different extents. But here, talking about folks that are living paycheck to paycheck, I mean, I've been in the restaurant business a long time, and the employee value proposition has evolved dramatically. 15 years ago, we talked just about wages and promotions and schedules. And I believe even then we were highlighting direct deposit was available. Maybe that was 20 years ago. And today, I want to say that employees are evaluating whether or not an employer understands the realities of their life. And, to me, what strikes me most about this report isn't necessarily the product discussion, but what it says about the state of the hourly workforce. And so this is where you guys really come in and play a really integral role, I would say, in helping combat what some of these issues are with the frontline workers.
Yeah, well, that's great. Great to know. And I think great feedback for everybody as well. So, look, the fact is, we know the workers are struggling in 2026. This survey was done again in March. And as everybody knows, it's when the conflict started with Iran. We saw oil prices go up again. So I think, we see impacts that continue, right? Whether it's inflation or other things that are impacted this workforce. Some of the things, again, that we picked up, I've had to take credit hits, late fees, and overdraft charges to pay my rent on time because of 2-week paychecks. Using my credit card for bills I can't pay back. I've skipped my minimum payments before on my credit card, and I've also skipped meals or grocery shopping. I've also not been able to fill up my car with gas. And that's tough when you're trying to get to work in a lot of cases. I was running low on food and couldn't drive to the store because I needed gas. So I walked 2 miles and just bought cheap basics like soup and ramen. And I've resorted to donating blood plasma and skipping breakfast and lunch to try to come up with money to repair my van. These are all hard stories to read, and but things we actually received from these employees as we talk through these things with them. Why employee financial stress matters to you. And Michael, I'll start with you. I mean, we'll have the slide up here, but I know you guys see it in the workforce, but what does it mean to you guys to do everything you can to make sure financial stress remains low, make sure we're providing options to help your employees?
Sure. I'll start by saying that we truly, it's a small family business. We treat all of our workers like family. And so if somebody's stressed at home, that carries over into work, and you hate to see it because then it's covering all aspects of their lives. And so, when you talk about the financial stress, and I see it right there on the screen, turnover, absenteeism, scheduling challenges, et cetera, one of the key greens fees, and it's foregone because you have to have competitive wages to get them in the door. And once they have competitive wages, and I know we'll probably talk about it later, consistency of schedule is super important. But beyond that, the issue isn't always income. It could be a competitive wage, but it's timing. It's when things go wrong is when maybe they're unable to come to work. Something comes up to where in their personal life could be a flat tire on a Tuesday, right? And then they find themselves in a situation where they're going to need to pull that money forward. And if it's a flat tire, then they have a hard time getting to work. And so, when you look at all these different levers you can pull to help them out, a daily pay is a great example of something that sort of can offset some of these financial stresses.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and you hit this slide really well, so I'm not going to spend much more time on it. But all of these things are impacted by financial stress. And then on the next slide, we're going to talk about what does that look like for the workforce today. It has become the new workforce crisis. I mean, it really has. When you look at this survey, how often do you feel stressed about your current financial situation? That was the question in this case. And 63% frequently or constantly stress about their financial situation, their financial health. And that's a tough place to be in when you're also trying to do all the things that come with just life in general. So what happens when the money runs out or runs short? I mean, you've got to do something, right? And many of these are not good options, right? So you borrow from family or friends. You go without necessities, things that you otherwise need or would buy. You delay paying bills. You know, you use credit cards, which are not healthy, especially for the group that we're talking about. It was included in the survey. And then we see payday loans, and we have the number. I don't think we have it in this deck, but the number, the amount of money that people are paying to access payday loans. I mean, it was close to a couple $100 a month, that people are paying in additional fees. So you're basically talking about a good portion of a single paycheck that they're paying in addition to just access their money. And so that you see more options over here that we got feedback on. These are the percentages, the breakdown. So you go without something you need was 56%, ask to borrow money from friends or family, or the top two at 54%. I'm having trouble seeing those numbers there. So, yeah, anything you want to add on this one at all, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, the people that you're polling too, these aren't people who aren't working. Like, these are people who are working and still experiencing financial strain. And it's humbling when you see the avenues that they have to go to bridge a gap. And to me, that struggle is something that whenever you're coming up with creative ways to try and help these folks, I mean, it's hard to say, don't go without. You have to pay your bills, or skip dinner. And again, those are just unviable options that people end up having to resort to, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I would say too, at least in conversations with my folks, oftentimes, again, these are people who are working. It's not so much the budgeting problem, but a cash flow problem. And here, just as I look at it, I would actually throw a question back at you, Tal, is what surprises you the most about these workers trying to bridge this gap between earning money and receiving money?
Well, I think that's a great question. What surprises me most? I mean, I think it's always a reality check to what they're actually dealing with. I think everybody has an idea, right? But to actually have them respond to a survey like this in this way and be candid and be honest, I think we get probably more honesty than they give. The other thing that we know is that they don't necessarily share this with their employers. Certainly they don't share this detail, right? But they're living through it. And I think just the sheer detail they were providing to us. I've been doing this for a while, so well aware of some of the alternatives here. The payday loans and the credit cards is just not a good place to be, right? So, and you mentioned these are working people, and they absolutely are. In many cases, they're working multiple jobs, right? And fighting to get by as well. So again, the hidden cost of waiting for payday: 56% borrowed from family or friends. Oh, here it is, 117 average payday loan fees. That's a monthly number, which is just crazy. 80% say on-demand pay would reduce credit card reliance, and that's what we want to try to help with. The leadership disconnect, the leadership blind spot: 53% say leadership doesn't understand paycheck to paycheck living, and 35% say leadership doesn't care about their financial well-being. I know you guys have led on this, Michael. You guys have been in the adoption of everything you can for your employees. I can remember back in, we worked with you when a group that we founded, Money Network, with you guys were some of the first to put payroll cards in play back in 2003, 4, 5, whenever it might have been. So you've always been out front on a number of these things, and you have been on earned wage access as well. How can leadership sort of, you think, in continue to close the gap? I mean, maybe the things that you guys are thinking about doing, but things that others you think that you are doing that could help others going forward as well.
You brought up MoneyNet. That was us back trying to be pioneering back in the day too, where many of our where we operate, many of our folks are unbanked.
Yeah.
And so we were still cutting checks and hand delivering those and looking for ways to find a direct deposit avenue. And so MoneyNet became a great avenue for us to pursue, basically acting as a debit card and a bank for those folks. And we've throughout time we always are constantly trying to evolve our employee value proposition, right? Like, how do we appeal to people? What does this menu of benefits and perks look like? And so MoneyNet was the right move at the time. And then it had certain limitations as well, as you well know, but it was fantastic for what it did at that point in time. And
Yep.
so pulling that lever was amazing for our folks, who then, instead of having a check that they were cashing, maybe at a check cashing place, and they're getting advances on those as well. You gave them an ability to keep a bankable card that helped them sort of space things out instead of just having a bunch of cash in their pocket. So
Yep.
the evolution, that's 20, 25, 20, 24 years ago. And even though you're saying 20 years ago, that's really the recent past, because
It really
these
is.
things don't move that quick. And I think the evolution of these things has gotten more and more rapid with these changes too, in bankability and otherwise. But I know we'll touch on that too in a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And now you guys innovated with this, and I think you stay closer to your workers. And I think that's what it's all about, right? 73% of hourly restaurant workers in America believe on-demand pay shows that an employer cares about workers' real lives outside of work. So look, it's not going to solve everything, but the workers absolutely believe that it indicates that you guys care, since you're offering it, others care that are offering it. And it's just something that needs to be done. Giving employees pay options shows leaders are understanding of the hardships these times are putting us through. So we know what the hard times are. We're going to provide solutions for that. And I think what they told us was they see that, they appreciate just making an effort, right, in many cases. How do you stay connected to what frontline employees are experiencing financially, Michael?
So it's tough. Some of the statistics on that prior slide are humbling. It's not the first time I've seen some of those, but there's a stark reality with some of those avenues that people choose. And you talked about transparency and honesty, and a lot of times that won't make its way back to us. What people are doing to survive, call it humility or any range of emotions that put them in that situation. And so beyond conversations, it's about just you've got to sit down and talk to folks and ask and plead for that honesty. And again, I talked about competitive wage. With McDonald's especially, we're gonna start you out at a certain level, and if it's not competitive in the markets that you operate in, you're not going to get anybody in the door. And so you have to start there, and then you have to start pulling these other levers. Not just we can develop you into a manager. Here is your career path. Here is a path to making more money, to having more stability, and to having a career that you can look back and say, I'm really proud of the fact that I have grown in this position and role. And so it has to start with conversations and keeping your ear to the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thank you. So what do workers want most? I mean, we asked a lot of things in this survey. It wasn't just about pay and that sort of thing and how they're managing that. We asked a wide range of choices, and these were the answers that we received back. All of these kind of go to their financial health. Michael, you understand some of these better than I do, and we'll drill into some of them a little bit. But when we asked them what workers want most important benefits are guaranteed hours, right? That's 88% said that guaranteed hours is important to them. Flexible scheduling, 86%. Overtime opportunities, right? Which kind of goes hand in hand with I need more money and I'm willing to work. I'll work more, right? Overtime opportunities, 76%, right? Are saying they're willing to work overtime to have access to more money. And then earned wage access, 71%. So again, the question is a powerful question, and it's at the top of this. What we actually asked them exactly is the top of this page. How important would each employee benefit or perk be to you when considering an hourly pay job? And those were the top four. That's really none of that's particularly surprising to me, Michael. I guess I'd be interested in maybe your take on that. And then on 1, 2, and 3, we know you guys are providing earned wage access, have been a leader in that. But on 1, 2, and 3, how do you see that as an owner operator? Those first three as well.
Well, seeing too just the number of folks as a percentage who it varies somewhat neutral. To me, the report is saying that workers aren't necessarily asking for more perks; they're asking for more certainty.
Yeah.
And so, that's guaranteed hours, it's flexible scheduling, it's overtime opportunities, and we promote that as much as we can. You can write your own ticket if you are a hard worker and you want to come and you want to learn and you're eager and you show up and you're consistent, and we can guarantee that consistency on the other side. For us, flexible scheduling is also important. If you're a single parent, and you need certain time, you need to be off by a certain time, or you can't get to work by a certain time, and certain weekends and otherwise. I mean, these are things that happen in conversation, and same with overtime. It's one of those things. We want to make sure we're staffed enough to not have excessive overtime, but understand too, if someone's willing to put that time in, they're worth that time and a half.
Yeah.
And look, I don't want to gloss over number 4. The earned wage access is a massive lever for us. That we talk about perks, and we were talking about that menu of value proposition before. Back in the day, if you were promoting direct deposit as a perk, now in the beginning, because we've been on earned wage access since 2018.
Yeah.
And so at the time it was a differentiator, and now I see it as an absolute certainty. If everyone needs to be doing some form of earned wage access, as not just a perk, but another part of that predictability and certainty. It's alongside the guaranteed hours and flexible scheduling and overtime opportunities. Earned wage access, it's up there. It is. Look at its top 4. It shows right there. And I would very gladly shout that from the mountaintops.
Yeah. Well, I think you're absolutely right. And, and look, we've talked to some people about this survey, and we'll just go ahead and talk about it here a little bit. You will have some people say, well, yeah, they just need to be paid more, but that's not necessarily what they're asking for. And in restaurants, typically today, everybody's being squeezed a little bit, right? So it's not about being paid more. It's being paid fair, and then having access and given the opportunities some of these other things indicate, I think, in many cases. Earned wage access is no longer a niche, Michael. You just mentioned that. 81% say EWA should be a standard benefit within the organizations that we talk to within this group of employees. 63% say earned wage access would be highly valuable. 81% say earned wage access increases financial control. It has become a table stakes benefit within the restaurant space, and will continue to be. It's something that, not only do employees deserve to have access. I mean, again, we're talking about wages they have worked for and they have earned. They should have access to those wages, and they're recognizing that opportunity and are seeing it in certain employers and asking for it in others. The rise of pay flexibility is the next part of this that we'll go through real quick. For the next poll question, I would be interested in participants on the webinar. Do you offer earned wage access or same-day tips? Either yes or no. Okay. EWA drives retention. We know that to be the case. 77% of the employees told us that they would stay longer if earned wage access were available to them at their employer. 57% said they would actually leave a job for a similar job offering earned wage access. And you're at risk of losing talent to your competitors if you don't offer it. Earned wage access signals employers care, right? 73% say earned wage access shows an employer cares about employees' lives outside the work. 80% view earned wage access as a people first benefit. And 75% say payday would become less stressful if they had earned wage access. 72% believe on-demand pay will become expected, as we sort of mentioned here. Michael, anything else you'd like to add to some of these numbers here, or some of the things you're familiar with?
Sure. I mean, I can double down on it that somewhere in the last 8 years where we've offered earned wage access, it stopped feeling like an innovative benefit, and it started feeling like a benefit employees simply expected. And because we've had it for so long, it's been a part of our offerings and recruitment, and merchandising that we're now hiring. And so to me, it falls in that category of an automatic if you're looking at Beluso companies to go work at McDonald's. and
Yeah.
and the peers that aren't doing it. This is a competitive edge. So if we're already at competitive wages, and then you layer on something like EWA, you become the choice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the numbers show that. And, we're seeing other things as well, right? We talked about the retention. We've talked about the impact it has on the employees. But it has, again, it's a table stake benefit that they're looking for wherever they may go. So, touch a little bit on tips, right? Because we did include tips as part of this survey. We know that tips has certainly gained a lot of traction, not only in table service, as it's always been in table service, but now we're seeing it counter service and quick service. And we know that tips payouts also drive retention, and tips payouts are now available to employees as well. So if it is earned wage access, that's based on hourly wage workers, and they have the opportunity to get their pay as they work. If there are tips as well within the organization, those tips can be paid out immediately to workers that same day as well. 97% say they're important to their lifestyle at some degree, right? 81% would stay longer at current job if offered instant tips. 63% would leave for a similar job that offering instant tips. There's been, prior to solutions like instant tips, where they can have access to 100% of their tips all the time, employers were beginning to lean on pushing tips to payroll checks, especially in the table service environment. Now that's turning around. People who are in the table service space or counter service space, or anyone who has access to tips, they certainly don't want to wait for 2 weeks to get those tips. That's just not traditionally how it's been done. And many have driven their lifestyle based on access to those tips. It helps them cover daily expenses. It gives them greater financial stability, and it provides immediate access again to money they've earned, and it makes saving easier as well. So tips is an important piece of this as we go forward too. What benefits do your frontline workers, Michael, value most, or what are they asking for? We can talk about things that you guys might not be doing that you're looking at going forward, or we can dig in more on this. I don't believe you guys have tips in your environment. I'm not sure if that's something that would become an opportunity for you guys going forward, but what are some other things that you know that your workers are valuing most or are asking for?
So we do not have tips at McDonald's, but as you asked the question about what benefits do they value most, when I look at our EVP, I want to say that the certainty of scheduling is important, the flexibility as well, because we've got, it's your first job, as a teenager in high school, or it's a person on the later end of their career who wants to get just a couple of extra hours and a little extra paycheck from Saturday work. And then you've got those ones in the middle that are career folks and have stayed with us for a long time. And in my experience, people, and it's really not a benefit as much just a cultural reflection, that people stay because of managers, in the environment, who the coworkers are, offering growth opportunities. It's pay is important. I mean, it's nobody's working for free, and that entry level wage is something that you don't stay at very long if you put your nose down and you get to work. And we stay in constant conversation with our people, 30-day interviews, 60-day interviews, making sure that they are recognized for that time. And also as they learn more parts of the restaurant or, gain some managerial experience, we're very quick to pay people for doing the right thing and working hard and learning the business. There's really, I've never seen one benefit that solves retention or new hires. Every positive thing you do just adds another brick to the foundation. And so, we also offer things that's on the other end of the spectrum, but we also offer a 401k program and matching. And so we start with competitive pay, and then, early wage access, and we go all the way to a 401k match to make sure that we're touching on the entire gamut. And those are the things too, as you grow with Beluga companies or with any brand for a long time, if they've got certain things in place like retirement, then you're catching both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, that's amazing. Great ideas and some great work you guys have done to put your employees in a more stable place for sure. Uh, what restaurant leaders should take away from this as we start wrapping up today? Financial stress is widespread. I mean, we see it, it's shown in this report. We need to recognize it, right? It's operationally relevant. It does impact your workforce. It does impact your service you're providing to your customers. And it should be very important to everything that you do as a restaurant operator. It's affecting retention, right? If we know that if you have and provide access to wages, it is a positive impact on retention of your employees, and it affects recruiting. We know that many of these workers, as we've shown in this report, are going to search out places going forward that provide them wage access. Workers increasingly expect pay flexibility, faster access to their earnings, and a modern payroll experience. Workers have earned their pay. How long should they have to wait for it? That's a question that I hope everyone will think about that's tuned in for this webinar. And it certainly is not something they should have to wait for. And the technology is there to make it easy for both the employers and the employees in these organizations. Thank you. And you can download a report at instant.co, and feel free to follow up with us if you'd like to on any other questions. And we'll certainly take some time for questions here. Alan.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Tal, thanks for sharing those findings, observations, and experiences. A lot of research that just shared. That was great. Thanks. Audience, a question came in while you were sharing, but let's get to those questions in a moment. But I need to remind the audience in case they've forgotten. As a reminder to the audience, participate in Q&A. Just type your questions into the text box located to the right side of the presentation window. If for some reason we can't get to a question you submitted today, for whatever reason, we shall share them with the speakers offline. And if they have any useful information, they can get back to you on that. That's if there's something, if you ask something they can actually help you with, they'll get back to you offline on that. So our first question reads, let me get to that first question. Let's see here. The data shows employees want these benefits, but what employee adoption rates are you seeing for companies that have already implemented instant pay?
Yeah, that's a great question, Alan. It's probably more than you would expect, right? We see that and it breaks down between table service and quick service restaurants, but within the quick service restaurant space, we'll see a range between 50 and 90% participation in earned wage access, right? Indicating again that it's dramatically needed. And when they have the access, they certainly use it. In the table service, it's similar, maybe not quite as high, but in the table service environment, we will see that range from about 35 to 55 or 60%.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. Here's a question that asks, as a small business with up to 150 employees, is offering a percentage of their tips a good idea, or allowing access to all their tips? And does that go for regular wages as well? This is also a nightmare for the accountant who has to divvy out the tips to the entire staff on a daily basis. So let's talk about this percentage of these available monies and strategies around that, perhaps.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I'm going to separate the two because instant pay and instant tips are two different things. And we work with many organizations to provide both. But let's go first to the instant wages, which Michael and the Veluzzo companies use. And on earned wage access, we provide access to 50% of their gross wages, right? And that's important because that ends up being about 70 to 80% of their net wages, right? We're not immune. We know there's some garnishments included in some places, and you have the regular gross to net calculations. So 50% of your gross wages is the right number. Provides them still some remainder in their check when it occurs, and it provides room for those deductions that many people are going to have. On the tip side, it's different, and on the tip side, we can manage tip calculation and tip pooling for employers, and those will be paid out at 100% on the tip side. We do it just as if they were receiving cash tips within the table service environment. We mimic that with technology and do that digitally and do the tip calc and tip pooling for them.
Hey, Tal, I need to ask because I'm not in your industry and I'm not doing payroll lately, at least for not 45 years. But what are some of the advantages of being able to handle these tips? And turn them over like that? I mean, we're talking, I guess, about maybe credit card tips versus cash tips. So talk a little bit about why that helps.
Right, that's right. Well, first, we've talked about the benefits to the employee, right? I mean, just access and having the money. The benefits to the employer is that in many cases, people aren't paying in cash anymore. So if you're still trying to pay out tips, which you should be, right? We always advocate for table service workers to be able to have access to the money via tips because it helps these things that we're talking about. But if you're not using a technology like Instant Tips, then you're having to bring cash into the store in many cases to pay out, right? And that bringing that cash in today has a cost, and it's unnecessary, right? So the benefit that we provide to the employer from a tips perspective is eliminating that cash need, right? Setting up a structure so they're not required to bring in cash to pay out tips, and at the same time still make daily tips available to their employees.
Okay, good to know. Thanks. We have a question here that asks, what retention effects have you seen post-implementation of EWA?
Yeah, it varies by vertical, but we'll focus on QSR for that one, and Michael may have something to add on this as well. And the numbers vary based on the region of the country that you're in, even the brand that you're working under. But it is at least 27%, as I think the last number we said, but it can be up to a 30%, 35% increase in retention, which if you take that, I think the average cost of hiring a worker today in the QSR environment is about $3,000 once you do everything you need to do to get them trained, bring them in. And at $3,000, and if you got, we've got a varied group on here, I'm sure. So even if you've got 150 employees and you're turning over, 300% of those employees, and you can, 100%, 200%, 300% in some cases, and you can decrease that by 30 or 40%, that becomes real money for a business pretty quickly. Michael, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that question.
Sure. Just recruiting costs, turnover costs, training costs, operational consistency, retention is something that is front of mind, top of mind. And, it's a massive, massive cost to bring folks in. I've got some numbers that are probably a bit antiquated, but, losing a crew person costs upwards of $1,000 every time you train them. If you lose them with only a few weeks, and shift managers, it's double and triple that. And when you dial down to that specific amount, that's just the training costs of the time put into them. Anything you can do to help retention, and this is one of those bricks that builds the foundation. And someone was asking earlier about allowing access to early pay, and in our world, for us, we've got just shy of 4,600 employees, and that's 35% are enrolled in instant pay, and of that, about 25% of the money is pulled every day. And so this is not something that in the beginning, I think when you think about fears or are people going to abuse this and pull too much money too fast, we have seen historically, and this is 8 years worth of data with Instant, that people are pulling these for need-based reasons. It's not for much beyond that. And so, providing the service and then hoping for responsibility on their side, we've seen some pretty well good decision making on their part.
Okay, appreciate that perspective. I have a question here that asks, small business who may not have the ability to move to an on-demand pay, recommendation of working toward that or finding middle ground. So small business, they perceive that they might not be able to move to pay on demand, but what are some recommendations for working to middle ground?
Yeah, so I think first of all, we'd be open to talking. If you're on this webinar and interested in it, we'll be open to following up with you in regards to how you can do that as a small business. So certainly let us know on that. But first of all, it's not something that's difficult. It doesn't require capital from you as an employer, right? The advances that are paid for these earned wages are paid by Instant. And so then we recover on payday. So it's not something that's capital intensive, doesn't require you to put out more cash to do that. And it's certainly it's something that we can make available to all of your employees. So size of the business is not necessarily a restriction on being able to do it. That's what I would say.
Okay, thanks. Michael, did you have any interim steps when you were getting started in all this stuff that might still apply today, or is everything advanced so much that it's really not an issue?
Procedurally, I will say there's, as with any type of accounting or payroll change, there's small hiccups in the beginning, but Tal and his team, and again, it's been a few years, we're amazing in jumping over any hurdles, and it becomes so automated. It's second thought, it's second nature to us, and so there's rarely any complaints coming out of payroll that there's any clunkiness here. So I mean, it's they've really found a way to make it seamless, even for and obviously Tal will probably be able to set up offline with the folks that are in the smaller businesses, but I know you guys do a great job onboarding and making sure it's seamless as it continues. So I have no doubt that the team would be able to handle whatever situation was to surface with whatever size business.
Good to know. Let me take a look through here, see if I have any numbers and questions. Let's see here. Can't see any additional stuff, gentlemen. So I'm going to say that we've served up a lot of good information from our knowledge menu. Sorry, I had to keep that restaurant angle in there, but before we close up, please let me thank today's speakers, Michael Valuzzo of Valuzzo Companies and Tal Clark of Instant Financial. I will also offer up thanks to Instant Financial for the sponsorship that made this program possible. Please remember to fill out our survey on the way out. And if you have not done so, check out the resources area of your webinar console for topical links or documents. I'm told there are some there, so give it a look. Within the next 24 hours, you'll receive a follow-up email with a link to today's presentation on demand. Feel free to share that information with colleagues who may not have been available to attend today. I can't speak. This webinar is copyright 2026 by Informa, and the presentation materials are owned by or copyrighted by Informa. Individual speakers are solely responsible for their content and opinions. And in conclusion, I think that you should know that all of us here wish you a very good day.